guys, I'm here to read a little bit more of our book. So we're actually almost done. We only have about 3 more chapters. We're on chapter 48, and this was when the warden came and was ready to get the suitcase from Stanley, and then to Stanley's surprise had his name on it. So we're going to pick up right there, chapter 48. They slowly walked back to camp. The tall man was the Texas Attorney General, the chief law enforcement officer for the state. Stanley's lawyer was named Miss Marengo. Stanley held the suitcase. He was so tired he couldn't think straight. He felt as if he was walking in a dream, not quite able to comprehend what was going on around him. They stopped in front of the camp office. Mr. Sir went inside to get Stanley's belongings. The Attorney General told Mr. Pedansky to get the boys something to drink and eat. The warden seemed as dazed as Stanley. "You can't even read," she said to Zero. Zero said nothing. Miss Marengo put a hand on Stanley's shoulder and told him to hang in there. He would be seeing his parents soon. She was shorter than Stanley, but somehow gave the appearance of being tall. Mr. Pedansky returned with 2 cartons of orange juice and 2 bagels. Stanley drank the juice but didn't feel like eating anything. "Wait," the warden exclaimed. "I didn't say they stole the suitcase. It's his suitcase, obviously, but he put my things from my cabin inside of it." "That isn't what you said earlier," said Miss Marengo. "What's in the suitcase?" the warden asked Stanley. "Tell us what's in it. Then we'll open it and see." Stanley didn't know what to do. "Stanley, as your lawyer, I advise you to not open the suitcase," said Miss Marengo. "He has to open it," the warden said. "I have the right to check the personal property of any of the detainees. How do I know there aren't drugs or weapons in there? He stole a car, too. I've got a witness." She was just nearly hysterical. "He is no longer under your jurisdiction," said Stanley's lawyer. "He has not been officially released," said the warden. "Open the suitcase, Stanley." "Do not open it," said Stanley's lawyer. Stanley did nothing. Mr. Sir returned from his office with Stanley's backpack and clothes. The Attorney General handed Miss Marengo a sheet of paper. "You're free to go," he said to Stanley. "I know you're anxious to get out of here, so you can keep the orange suit as a souvenir. Or burn it. Whatever you want. Good luck, Stanley." He reached out his hand to shake, but Miss Marengo hurried Stanley away. "Come on, Stanley," she said. "We have a lot to talk about." Stanley stopped and turned to look at Zero. He couldn't just leave him here. Zero gave him thumbs up. "I can't leave Hector," Stanley said. "I suggest we go," said his lawyer, with a sense of urgency in her voice. "I'll be okay," said Zero. His eyes shifted towards Mr. Pedansky from one side of him, then the warden and Mr. Sir on the other. "There's nothing I can do for your friend," said Miss Marengo. You are released pursuant to an order from the judge." "They're going to kill him," said Stanley. "Your friend is not in danger," said the Attorney General. "There's going to be an investigation into everything that's happened here. For the present, I am taking charge of this camp." "Come on, Stanley," said his lawyer. "Your parents are waiting." Stanley stayed where he was. His lawyer sighed. "May I have a look at Hector's file? And remember, Hector is Zero," she asked. "Certainly," said the Attorney General. "Miss Walker, go and get Hector's file." She looked at him blankly. "Well?" The warden turned to Mr. Pedansky. "Bring me Hector Zeroni's file." He stared at her. "Get it," she ordered. Mr. Pedansky went into the office. He returned a few minutes later and announced the file was apparently misplaced. The Attorney General was outraged. "What kind of camp are you running here, Miss Walker?" The warden said nothing. She stared at the suitcase. The Attorney General assured Stanley's lawyer that he would get the records. "Excuse me while I call my office." He turned back to the warden. "I assume the phone works." He walked into the camp office, slamming the door behind him. A little while later, he reappeared and told the warden he wanted to talk to her. She cursed, then went inside. Stanley gave Zero a thumbs up. "Caveman, is that you?" He turned to see Armpit and Squid coming out of the rec room. Squid shouted back into the rec room. "Caveman and Zero out here." Soon, all the boys from Group D had gathered around Zero. "Good to see you, man," Armpit said, shaking his head. "We thought you were buzzard food." "Stanley's being released today," said Mr. Pedansky. "Way to go," said Magnet, hitting him on the shoulder. "And you didn't even have to step on a rattlesnake," said Squid. Even Zigzag shook Stanley's hand. "Sorry about, "It's cool," said Stanley. "We had to lift the truck clear out of the hole," Zigzag told him. "It took everybody in C, D, and E. We picked it right up." "It was really cool," said Twitch. X-Ray was the only one who didn't come over. Stanley saw him hang back behind the others a moment, then returned to the rec room. "Guess what?" said Magnet, glancing at Mr. Pinansky. "Mom says that we don't have to dig any holes anymore." "That's great," Stanley said. "Will you do me a favor?" Squid asked. "I guess," Stanley agreed, somewhat hesitantly. "I want you to—" He turned to Miss Marengo. "Hey, lady, do you have a pen and paper I can borrow?" She gave it to him, and Squid wrote down a phone number, which she gave to Stanley. "Will you call my mom for me, okay? Tell her I said I was sorry. Tell her Alan said he was sorry." Stanley promised he would. "Now, you be careful out in the real world," said Armpit. "Not everybody is as nice as us." Stanley smiled. The boys departed when the warden came out of her office. The Attorney General was right behind her. "My office is having some difficulty locating Hector Zeroni's records," the Attorney General said. "So, you have no claim of authority over him?" asked Miss Marengo. "I didn't say that. He's in the computer. We just can't access his records. It's like they've fallen through a hole in cyberspace." "A hole in cyberspace?" Miss Marengo repeated. "How interesting. When is his release date?" "I don't know." "How long has he been in here?" "Like I said, we can't." "So what are you planning on doing with him? Keeping him confined indefinitely? Without jurisdiction? While you are crawling through black holes in cyberspace?" The Attorney General stared at her. He was obviously incarcerated for a reason. "Oh, and what reason is that?" The Attorney General said nothing. Stanley's lawyer took hold of Zero's hand. "Come on, Hector. You're coming with us." Okay. I'll read one more chapter. It's pretty short. Chapter 49. There never used to be yellow-spotted lizards in the town of Green Lake. They didn't come to the area until the lake dried up, but the townsfolk had heard about the red-eyed monsters living in the desert hills. One afternoon, Sam, the Onion Man, and his donkey, Mary Lou, were returning to his boat, which was anchored by just off the shore. It was late November, and the peach trees had lost most of their leaves. "Sam," someone called. He turned around to see 3 men running after him, waving their hats. He waited. "Afternoon, Walter, Bo, and Jessie," he greeted them as they walked up, catching their breath. "Glad we caught you," said Bo. "We're going rattlesnake hunting in the morning. We want to get some of your lizard juice," said Walter. "I ain't scared of no rattlesnake," said Jessie, "but I don't want to come across one of those red-eyed monsters. I seen one once, and that was enough." I knew all about the red eyes, and of course, I hadn't heard of the big black teeth. "It's the white tongues that get me," said Bo. Sam gave each man 2 bottles of pure onion juice. He told them to drink 1 bottle before going to bed that night, then a half bottle in the morning, and a half bottle at lunchtime. "You sure this stuff works?" said Walter. "I tell you what," said Sam, "if it doesn't, you can come back next week and I'll give you your money back." Walter looked around unsure, and Bo and Jessie laughed. Then Sam laughed too. Even Mary Lou let out a rare hee-haw. "Just remember," Sam told the men before they left, "it's very important that you drink a bottle of the onion juice tonight. You gotta get it into your bloodstream. The lizards don't like onion blood." So maybe you're getting a little bit of a hint here about the lizards and Stanley and Zero. Okay, so that was a flashback. So now we're going back to Stanley and Zero's time. Stanley and Zero sat in the back seat of Miss Marengo's BMW. The suitcase lay between them. It was locked, and they decided they'd let Stanley's father try to open it in his workshop. "You don't know what's in it, do you?" she asked. "No," said Stanley. "I didn't think so." The air conditioning was on, but they drove with the windows open. "Well, because no offense, you boys really smell bad," she said. Miss Marengo explained that she was a patent attorney. "I'm helping your father with a new product he invented. He happened to mention your situation, and I did a little investigating. Clyde Livingston's sneakers were stolen sometime before 3:15. I found a young man, Derek Doone, who said that at 3:20 you were in the bathroom fishing your notebook out of the toilet. 2 girls remembered seeing you come out of the boys' restroom carrying a wet notebook." Stanley felt his ears redden. Even after everything he'd been through, the memory still caused him some shame. "So you couldn't have stolen them," said Miss Marengo. "He didn't. I did," said Zero. "You did what?" said Miss Marengo. "I stole the sneakers." The lawyer actually turned around while she was driving and looked at him. "I didn't hear that," she said, "and I advise you to make sure I don't hear it again." "So what did my father invent?" Stanley asked. "Did he find a way to recycle sneakers?" "No, he's still working on that one," explained Miss Marengo. "He invented a new product that eliminates foot odor. Here, I've got a sample in my briefcase. I wish I had more. You 2 could bathe in it." She opened her briefcase with one hand and passed a small bottle back to Stanley. It had a fresh, somewhat spicy smell. He handed it to Zero. "What is it called?" Stanley asked. "Well, we haven't came up with a name with it yet," said Miss Marengo. "It smells familiar," said Zero. "Peaches, right?" asked Miss Marengo. "That's what everyone says." A short while later, both boys fell asleep. Behind them, the sky had turned dark, and for the first time in over 100 years, a drop of rain fell into the empty lake. All right, guys, and that is where we'll stop. I think probably we'll just do one more video to finish it up because it's one more short chapter. And I'll go ahead and post a Flipgrid with this too for you to complete, so just keep an eye out for that. All right, have an awesome Easter weekend if you're watching it real time. All right, bye.